While the horrific crimes committed by high-ranking Nazi officials during World War II have been extensively documented and are widely known throughout the world, the lives of their wives after the war's conclusion have often been overlooked and rarely discussed. These women were married to some of the most notorious and evil figures in human history. But what actually happened to them once the war finally ended? Were they held accountable and punished for the actions of their husbands? Or were they somehow able to live peaceful lives afterward? Let's take a detailed and closer look at the post-war experiences of these Nazi wives and examine the profound impact that their husbands' crimes had on their own lives. Ilse Hess, the devoted wife who never stopped believing. Ilse Hess led a life completely defined by her unwavering allegiance to the Nazi Party and her marriage to Rudolf Hess, who served as Adolf Hitler's deputy Führer. She became Rudolf Hess's steadfast companion, standing loyally by his side through all the turbulent and violent years of the Third Reich's existence. Ilse and Rudolf Hess first met during the early 1920s, and their romantic relationship blossomed and grew amidst the rising tide of National Socialism sweeping through Germany. In 1921, she initially joined the Nazi Party as an early member and then rejoined again in 1925 after the party had been temporarily banned by German authorities following Hitler's failed beer hall putsch. She was initially attracted to Rudolf Hess and interested in pursuing a relationship, but he hesitated and was reluctant to become romantically involved. Interestingly, Ilse personally introduced Rudolf Hess to Adolf Hitler, who at that time was actively engaging in social events that were hosted by affluent women from Munich's upper classes. Hitler played a significant and direct role in facilitating and strongly influencing the marriage between Ilse and Rudolf Hess, which officially occurred on December 20, 1927, in Munich. Moreover, Hitler himself stood as the godfather to their only child, a son named Wolf Hess, who was born in 1937. Throughout the entire duration of the war, Ilse remained an absolutely steadfast supporter of the Nazi regime and its policies. Her loyalty was most clearly evident when her husband embarked on his bizarre solo flight to Scotland in May 1941, which was a futile and ultimately failed attempt to negotiate peace terms with the United Kingdom. Despite all the serious repercussions and consequences of his ill-fated mission, which resulted in his immediate capture and imprisonment by British authorities, Ilse staunchly defended his intentions and continued to stand firmly by the Nazi Party. Ilse Hess's life after the war ended was marked by tremendous challenges of rebuilding her existence and adapting to a world that had irrevocably changed. With her husband sentenced to life imprisonment during the famous Nuremberg trials, she was left completely alone to raise their son without any support. After World War II concluded, Ilse Hess and some other wives of high-ranking Nazi officials who were either convicted or executed in the Nuremberg trials were arrested by Allied authorities. They shipped her off to an internment camp located in Augsburg, Germany. When the authorities finally released her from detention, she relocated to the Allgäu region and managed to open a boarding house by 1955, using this small business to support herself. Ilse Hess was a steadfast and committed believer in National Socialism and remained devoted to Adolf Hitler and his ideologies until her death. After the war ended, she actively provided support to Stille Hilfe, which was a controversial relief organization specifically created to help arrested, condemned, and fugitive SS members escape justice. Her controversial book, titled England, Nuremberg, Spandau, and Schicksal in Briefen, England, Nuremberg, Spandau, A Destiny in Letters, which was published in 1952, gained some public attention and notoriety. Among her regular correspondents were known admirers and defenders of Hitler. Her later years were spent tirelessly advocating for her husband's release from Spandau prison in Berlin, where he was held as the sole remaining prisoner until his mysterious death in 1987 at age 93. Ilse Hess passed away on September 7, 1995, leaving behind a complex and troubling legacy that was deeply intertwined with the dark history of Nazi Germany. Margarete Himmler, the nurse who married the architect of genocide. Margarete Himmler was the wife of Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, the man directly responsible for overseeing the Holocaust and the concentration camp system. In a cruel twist of irony, Margarete Himmler had initially been trained as a professional nurse with the noble intention of saving lives during World War I. After that war concluded, she transitioned to working at a German Red Cross hospital, and with substantial financial support from her father, she even managed to operate her own private nursing clinic. Margarete first crossed paths with Heinrich Himmler during one of his political lecture tours in 1927. His attraction to her was immediate and strong, as he was captivated by her blue eyes and blonde hair, features prized by Nazi racial ideology. They married in July of the following year, despite Heinrich's initial apprehension and nervousness about introducing Margarete to his strict Catholic family due to their significant age difference and her previous marriage, as well as her Protestant faith rather than Catholic. Eventually, his family grudgingly accepted Margarete into their circle. The couple welcomed their daughter, Gudrun, into the world on August 8, 1929. Margarete was far from being a passive spectator in her husband's activities and career. She became an official member of the Nazi Party in 1928 and regularly arranged social gatherings and events for the spouses of high-ranking SS leaders. Despite her active involvement in Nazi social circles, she was notably unpopular among the other wives. During the massive Nuremberg rally in 1938, she had serious disagreements with the other women in attendance, who collectively refused to follow her lead or accept her authority. By the end of 1939, Margarete was overseeing the operation of Red Cross hospitals throughout the Berlin-Brandenburg region. Her organizational role centered on missions to various countries and regions under German Wehrmacht's occupation and control. In her personal diary, there is a documented trip to Poland, which was under brutal German occupation at the time, in March 1940, confirming her first-hand eyewitness account of the events unfolding there. Margarete wrote in her diary, "Then I was in Posen, Lodz, and Warsaw. This Jewish rabble, Polacks, most of them don't look like human beings, and the dirt is indescribable. It's an incredible job trying to create order there." Due to her organizational efforts for the Nazi regime, Margarete achieved the rank of colonel within the German Red Cross organization. In February 1945, just months before Germany's defeat, Margarete wrote to Gebhard Himmler, Heinrich Himmler's brother, expressing her admiring thoughts about Heinrich. "How wonderful that he has been called to great tasks and is equal to them. The whole of Germany is looking to him." In April 1945, as Germany collapsed, Margarete and Heinrich Himmler shared a final moment together before his death. Their marriage had effectively ended years before this final meeting, with Margarete discovering in 1941 that Heinrich was secretly entangled in a romantic relationship with his secretary, Hedwig Potthast, with whom he had fathered 2 illegitimate children. When the war finally concluded, Margarete was subjected to numerous investigations by Allied authorities probing the extent of her knowledge regarding her husband's monstrous affairs and crimes. She firmly denied any awareness of the Holocaust or concentration camps and pleaded desperately to be cleared of any Nazi association, attempting to absolve herself of responsibility for her husband's crimes. After a prolonged deliberation and investigation process, in 1953, she was officially deemed a profiteer of the Nazi regime and sentenced to 30 days of penal labor. Consequently, she was stripped of her voting rights and pension eligibility by German authorities. After her release from this punishment, she lived under the pseudonym Margarete Boden until her death in 1967, desperately trying to distance herself from her past and the Hitler name. Lina Heydrich, the wife of the Butcher of Prague. Lina Heydrich's path to the Nazi Party began through family influence. Her brother Hans was an ardent and enthusiastic member of the Nazi Party and the SA Sturmabteilung. His high praise and constant promotion of the party led Lina to attend a political rally in 1929, where Adolf Hitler delivered a powerful speech that greatly impacted her worldview, prompting Lina to join the Nazi Party herself. It was during a rowing club ball in the city of Kiel, when she was just 19 years old, that she met Naval Lieutenant Reinhard Heydrich, eventually leading to their engagement announcement on December 18, 1930. However, the subsequent year saw Heydrich facing serious charges of conduct unbecoming to an officer and gentleman for violating an engagement promise to another woman he had been romantically involved with for 6 months prior to his engagement to Lina. This scandal led to his dishonorable dismissal from the German Navy in April 1931, leaving him suddenly without a career or prospects. It was actually Lina who suggested to Reinhard the possibility of pursuing a career in the newly established SS Schutzstaffel. Heydrich's innovative ideas for creating an SS intelligence service prompted Heinrich Himmler to immediately appoint him as the chief of the newly formed intelligence service, which became known later as the SD Sicherheitsdienst. As an acknowledgement and reward for her husband's dedication to the Nazi cause, Adolf Hitler personally gifted Lina with a large estate in rural Bohemia in what is now the Czech Republic. At this estate, she kept several prisoners for forced labor, and it is alleged by witnesses that she personally abused them physically. The family resided there until April 1945, when they, along with many other Germans, fled to escape the advancing Soviet Red Army. After World War II concluded, Lina was remarkably acquitted in the denazification proceedings conducted by Allied authorities. Through a couple of protracted court battles against the West German government in 1956 and 1959, she successfully secured a state pension, a highly contentious decision given her husband's significant and documented role in planning and implementing the Holocaust. Despite her conviction and sentencing to life imprisonment in absentia by Czechoslovakia for her activities during the occupation, she managed to avoid ever serving this sentence by remaining in West Germany. In 1965, during a vacation trip to Finland, she met and later married Finnish theatre director Nauno Mannanen, a strategic move primarily aimed at changing her notorious surname from Heydrich. She managed and operated her first husband, Reinhard Heydrich's former summer house, located on Fehmarn Island, turning it into a restaurant and inn until an accidental fire caused significant damage. In 1976, she wrote and published a controversial memoir titled Life with a War Criminal. She tirelessly defended her first husband's reputation and denied his role in the Holocaust, up until her passing at the age of 74 on August 14, 1985. Emmy Göring, the First Lady who lost everything. Emmy Göring married the prominent Luftwaffe chief and high-ranking Nazi official Hermann Göring on April 10, 1935, in a lavish ceremony attended by Hitler himself. Interestingly, even though Emmy didn't actively seek or request Nazi Party membership, she was gifted official party induction as a Christmas present in 1938. Emmy Göring held the socially important responsibility of serving as Hitler's hostess at numerous state functions and official events before the start of World War II. Her self-proclaimed status as the First Lady of the Third Reich led to a significant rift and ongoing conflict with Hitler's longtime companion Eva Braun, whom Emmy openly disregarded and treated with visible disdain and contempt. This disrespectful behavior eventually resulted in Hitler personally demanding that Hermann Göring instruct his wife Emmy to treat Eva Braun with due respect and courtesy. One direct consequence of Emmy's disdainful attitude toward Eva was her complete exclusion from Hitler's Bavarian mountain retreat, the Beerhof. Eva Braun reportedly held a lasting grudge against Emmy for her presumptuous assumption of being the First Lady of the Reich, when Eva considered herself Hitler's true companion. Emmy occupied a position of significant power and wealth in Europe during the Nazi era, and therefore enjoyed an extraordinarily lavish lifestyle throughout World War II. Her husband's ownership of numerous mansions, estates, and castles located in Austria, Germany, and Poland, all garnered from the systematic confiscation of art and wealth from Jews and others classified as enemies by the Nazi regime, were clear testaments to their opulence. Upon their daughter Edda's birth in 1938, her husband Hermann commanded a tribute of 500 planes to fly over Berlin in celebration, publicly stating that he would have doubled the number had the baby been a boy instead. After the war ended and Germany was defeated, a German denazification court found Emmy guilty of being a Nazi supporter and beneficiary, leading to a year-long incarceration in prison. After her release from detention, a substantial portion of her wealth, amounting to 30% of her assets, was seized by authorities, and she is prohibited from performing on stage as an actress for 5 years. After her time in jail concluded, Emmy Göring managed to secure only a tiny apartment for herself in Munich, a dramatic fall from the palaces she had once inhabited. She also wrote and published an autobiography titled My Life with Göring, attempting to present her perspective on her years with the notorious Nazi leader. Emmy Göring passed away in Munich on June 8, 1973. She was 80 years old, having lived long enough to see her husband executed, her wealth confiscated, and her status completely destroyed. Conclusion: the wives who couldn't escape. The wives of Nazi leaders occupied a unique and morally complex position in history. They weren't the architects of genocide, they didn't sign the orders, and they didn't personally murder millions. But they lived in luxury built on stolen wealth, enjoyed privilege funded by confiscated Jewish property, and in many cases, actively supported the regime that committed these crimes. After the war, these women faced varied fates. Some, like Ilse Hess, never wavered in their loyalty to Nazi ideology and spent decades defending the indefensible. Others, like Margarete Himmler, claimed ignorance and tried to disappear under new names. Lina Heydrich fought for pensions and defended her husband's reputation. Emmy Göring lost everything but never truly acknowledged the source of her former wealth. What makes their stories particularly troubling is how many of them escaped serious consequences. While their husbands were executed or imprisoned, most of these wives served minimal sentences, retained some wealth, and lived out their lives in relative freedom. They benefited from a post-war German society that was often reluctant to fully prosecute women for their proximity to Nazi power. The question that haunts these stories is one of complicity. How much did they know? How much did they choose not to know? And does living off stolen wealth and enjoying privilege built on genocide make you guilty, even if you didn't personally commit the crimes? These women made choices to marry these men, to support the regime, to accept the luxury without asking where it came from. After the war, most of them made another choice: to deny, to minimize, and to defend rather than acknowledge the truth. That pattern of denial became its own form of guilt, a refusal to face what their lives had been built upon. Well, that's it. We hope you enjoyed our video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more fascinating history content. Thanks for watching, and until next time.